My name's Angelo, and welcome to We Want Picks. I'm going to break down the entire UFC Vegas 83 fight card, giving you my picks, predictions, and DraftKings plays. But before I do, let me give you the best DraftKings ownership projections in the game. If you play DraftKings Fantasy, then you know how important ownership projections are. And we quite literally have the best ownership projections in the game. This is from last week. Card was a little crazy. Underdogs went off, but the ownership projections were literally the best in the business. And you're going to get those with premium membership. Premium membership is also going to get you a DraftKings optimizer. This will build the lineups for you. This will build 150 lineups for you with just a couple of clicks. So we have the best numbers loaded into the best optimizer, and it is producing the best results. Our premium members, it's only $10 a freaking month. Just go to WeWantPicks.com, click $10 at the top, or click become a member at the top. It's $10. $10 for an entire month's worth of events. And you're going to get everything I mentioned and a million other things that I did not mention, and it's working. Our premium members have put up over $400,000 in winning tickets on the board over the last 4 months. That is not a coincidence. One ticket is a coincidence. This many, over $400-something thousand with the context. Be Nasty won 51 grand. And he said, I can't believe they allow you guys to offer these tools. I literally did my lineups this morning. I picked 3. I let the optimizer do the rest. And that's not the first comment that we have. Churro put up 10 grand. I think this is the first contest I've ever won in my life. Almost changed my licks last minute. My picks last minute. Thanks, Ange. I'm Ange. And thanks, Jacob. It goes on and on. It's not a coincidence. WeWantPicks.com. Click Become a Member at the top. It's only $10 a month. Even if you don't agree with my insight, the tools alone, the best DraftKings ownership projections loaded into an optimizer, those two things alone are worth way more than $10. But my goal from day one, as I've said many times, is to build the best no-brainer $10 premium offering on the planet when it comes to MMA. And that's exactly what we've done. This is only for DraftKings. We have a full suite of things as well for FanDuel, for daily fantasy prop games like Prize Picks, Underdog, as well as bets and everything else. WeWantPicks.com. Click Become a Member at the top. Let's go ahead and break down this card. We have 11 fights. We had 10, flexed all the way up to 12, and now we've dropped down to 11. But we got a couple of short notice people, and I think there is some good value on this card. We're going to start at the bottom, work our way up to the top, opening up the UFC Vegas 83 fight card. We have 2 UFC women debuts. So there's not going to be any data here. They're both debuts. So we have no historical records, but it's grappler versus grappler. Rayanne Amanda or Rayanne dos Santos, if you're doing your own research. Different books have her listed differently. She's an aggressive grappler. She's got some decent striking, and she has great takedown defense. That is very important. The takedown defense matters very much. This fight, I feel like, is going to go one way or the other. Meaning, and I guess every fight will. And that was a stupid way to word that. But my point being, whoever wins this fight is going to look good. I don't think this is a back and forth fight. I think Rayanne Amanda has the better striking. Certainly does not have the better grappling, but she does have the better wrestling, in my opinion. She's taken on Talita Alencar. Talita Alencar is a world-level grappler. She's accomplished everything you could ever want somebody to accomplish in grappling. She's won every major tournament, every major title. She's short, jacked, phenomenal at jiu-jitsu. Only 4 MMA fights, but very skilled on the ground. She wants to come forward, use that strength, that physicality, drag somebody to the ground, and get it done. She will chase takedowns. She's not really going to even engage in the striking. She comes out just guns blazing to close the distance and then shoots. And she's so freaking strong, even if it's a bad shot, she can drag you to the ground. That's the one thing that concerns me here. Now, Rayanne dos Santos at $8,300, I think she wins. I think she can defend the takedown. She's going to have the much better striking. I think she's a little more dynamic. And she has cardio. Talita Alencar gasses hard. But I'm not going to spend that $8,300 on Rayanne because she's not going to want to get it to the ground. Not against Talita. So now the only way she's going to win is to win striking exchanges on the feet, stuff some takedowns, and make Talita look stupid. That's not going to score that well. Talita She gets some takedowns. She gets a submit. All of a sudden, at $7,900, she could put up a ton of points. So I think for your DraftKings lineup, Talita is probably the better value because of the grapple-heavy game plan. But again, 2 unknowns. This one only has 4 fights in her entire career. If it gets to the ground, it could end quickly. Like, there's so many unknowns here. We only have 22 fighters to pick from. I say only, like that's a small number. But when you're building a lineup, you have to put 6 in your budget. There are some constraints there. I think Talita is probably a better DraftKings play than Rayanne is, although I do think Rayanne's takedown defense and cardio are going to be the difference here. So tricky fight, but I'll probably lean Talita here for a DraftKings lineup. And then we have Tatsuro Taira, stupid early on the card. I mentioned this in the breakdown with Jacob. I feel like the UFC should be promoting him. He's 14-0 in a market, or from a market that they want to grow. He's submitting people. Like, he's a well-rounded, good, extremely fun fighter to watch at times. Sometimes he's a boring wrestler. But they have him in the second fight in the card. But we have Tatsuro Taira. He's taking on Carlos Hernandez. $9,400. Let's work through his score. He has covered that salary in every single fight he's ever been. Charez, 99. And this Charez fight, he was knocked down. He was in a couple of super tight submissions. And he still put up almost 100 points. 103 versus Aguilar, 107 versus Vergara. And then Candelario, he put up 97. He has covered his $9,400 salary every single time he has fought. I think it's more the same. I think he should be in your lineup. But he is taking on Carlos Hernandez. This guy's a slick, like, busy guy. I said slick, and I backed off of that immediately. I was going to say slick grappler, and then I was like, let me change my words. He's not a slick grappler, but he is a grappler. His striking is just okay. He's got solid accuracy. He has deceiving power on his feet. He's going to throw those jabs. Not the most technically sound guy. His BJJ is pretty good. He has nothing to offer in the wrestling department. And you hate to see somebody with that good of BJJ and nothing to do in wrestling. It drives me crazy, but it is what it is. He's probably going to get taken down here anyway. I see Tatsuro coming forward, getting the takedowns. He does have to be careful, as in Tatsuro has to be careful, because Carlos Hernandez will shoot his shot. He'll throw up Hail Mary submissions. He'll throw up a flying triangle on his feet, and he has the ability to do that. I just don't think it's going to happen. So I see Carlos Hernandez getting taken down, controlled, potentially submitted. I see him standing up and then getting taken right back down. And all that means is Tatsuro Taira is going to score even more points. So I don't think Carlos Hernandez wins this fight. Obviously, a Hail Mary submission is a Hail Mary submission and anything's possible. But Tatsuro Taira should run through him, should put up a lot of points, because even if he doesn't finish Carlos Hernandez, we're going to get control. We're going to get takedown after takedown. Those are 5 points each, and we'll score really well for our DraftKings lineup. I'm surprised Taira is $9,400 and not a little bit more than that. Then we have Luana Santos taking on Stephanie Egger. Luana Santos is a judo practitioner. So is Stephanie Egger. We have judo fighter versus judo fighter. They're called judokas. But Luana Santos is a slick grappler. She has nice judo throws. She's going to work for control before submissions when she's on the ground. She is patient on top. Does a really good job of keeping that position and then transitioning. She'll strike and then transition. You see a lot of these younger fighters. She is young. You'll see a lot of these younger fighters get it to the ground and just immediately start trying to do something, where she gets it to the ground, controls the position, gets her hips settled, and then starts working around. She leans very heavily on her judo. It is good. And she's coming off the absolute beating over Juliana Miller, where Luana Santos will stand inside the pocket and just swing. And that's exactly what we had here. She put up 116 points. Taking on Stephanie Egger. Stephanie Egger, also a high-level judo practitioner, probably the more accomplished and better judo practitioner in this matchup. The problem is she is like judo or nothing. That's like, there's no striking whatsoever. She's landing 2 significant strikes per minute, which is a very, very low number. The most amount of significant strikes she ever landed in a fight was 29. 29 is nothing. 29 significant strikes in 2-round fight. Outside of that, she's immediately trying to close the distance, immediately trying to throw you, trip you, get you to the ground so that she can work her jiu-jitsu. She looked good when she just absolutely smoked a young, twerking Aylin Perez. And then this Alex Skiva fight, her striking didn't look very good. Alex Skiva was touching her a little bit. Then she had Alex Skiva's back standing up, like was behind her. And then Alex Skiva just rolled for a knee bar, took a chance, and actually got it. And her only other loss, at least recently, in the last 2 years, was to Mayra Bueno Silva, which is a quality loss. Yes, she's a steroid user, but that is a quality loss. So Stephanie Egger uses the judo, gets you to the ground, and then immediately starts looking for submissions. That she does have some submissions there in her back pocket, but she's judo or bust, takedown or bust. If she can't get this fight to the ground, that's it. I have to go Luana Santos here. She's going to swing on her feet. She's got the power. I'm assuming her judo is good enough to not get thrown, but anytime you get a wily vet like Stephanie Egger, you don't quite know what's going to happen. But I don't think Stephanie Egger is worth it, especially in a cash game at $7,600. Certainly, if you're going to throw her into a large field tournament type lineup, then yes, she may be worth that money. And this is a steep discount from her last 3 fights. She was a little bit of an underdog against Bueno Silva, obviously lost that. Put up huge points against Perez, but was a massive favorite. And there was a massive favorite in the last fight as well. But I don't think Stephanie Egger is going to necessarily get this done, so I'm not going to spend the $7,600. Luana Santos, though, at $8,600 may be a very sneaky play because Stephanie Egger does get finished, and Luana Santos has those abilities. She'll swing it out on her feet, and she's got some solid jiu-jitsu and judo as well. Then we have Melk Costa versus Steve Garcia. This fight has been rebooked. This was supposed to happen last week. Steve Garcia went to the hospital before weigh-ins, so obviously the fight was canceled. They moved it a week. And they moved it up a weight class. Listen, I'm not a doctor, but I imagine if you were hospitalized over an issue that wasn't something dumb, fighting in a cage 7 days later, I don't think you're going to be 100%. And that weighs heavily on this breakdown. Because we got Melk Costa. This guy's a well-rounded guy. He's got creative striking. He's got solid grappling. His takedowns are a little bit forced, but he's strong enough. He's good enough to get you to the cage and work you to the ground. He has powerful hands. He's got solid technique. He'll string together combinations well. He does all of these things. He's dangerous. I was a little worried last week because I know what a dog his opponent is. But he had the hospital stay. All of a sudden, it's a little tricky. But Melk Costa is a little bit juiced here at $9,000. He barely covered that if we look at his last fight against Austin Lingo. And this was an interesting fight because he had 3 takedowns. He didn't need the takedowns. He was lighting up Austin Lingo on the feet. He was baiting him. He was getting Austin to follow him. He would step off, blast him, and he was having a ton of success doing that. But then he would just immediately start grappling, which he didn't need to do. He's taking on Steve Garcia. As I mentioned, Steven Garcia was in the hospital last week. I don't 100% know why. We can make assumptions. It happened on weigh-in day. It happened before. We can make assumptions he was cutting too much weight and something went awry. I don't know specifically what happened. It just says illness. But it doesn't matter. Does it matter? Like, outside of food poisoning, which you should be well over in a week, like outside of something like that, he had an issue that ended up in the hospital. He either cut too much weight and freaking kidney started to shut down, or cut too much weight and got dizzy and started to pet. And in 7 days later, this dude's going to get into a fist fight. They're going to load him up with fluids. That's the first thing that happens when you get to the hospital. They're going to load him up with fluids, send him home, and then a few days later, he's going to have to start cutting weight. I just don't see all of that. Well, I don't see that working well for him, is what I should have said. I think Steve Garcia is not going to win this fight. The one thing that worries me is the reason I liked him last week is he is a dog. He's going to come forward. He's going to pressure. He's going to swing hard. He's going to grab. He's going to do all those things. He's going to stay in your face. He relies on his pace. He relies on his pressure. He relies on his toughness. And he can be a problem for a lot of people that can't handle those things. But 7 days removed from a hospital stay, is he those things? Can he push a heavy pace? How is he going to feel? There's too many questions. I think Melk Costa was always the better fighter, and it just came down to the dog in Steve. That dog might have been flushed out with an IV. So I'm going to go Melk Costa here. I don't think he's going to be worth the $9,000 necessarily because, yes, Steve Garcia has been finished, right? Mahachete finished him. But at the same time, he is a tough guy. we see Melk wrestling and grappling when he was winning the striking exchanges. He may wrestle the hell out of Steve instead of try to finish him, and may not be worth that $9,000 price tag. I think there's some other spots where we can get a little bit better value there. But I do think Melk is going to win this fight, and I'm far more confident in him this week than I was last week. Then we have I believe, the most expensive fighter on the card, Hyun Sung Park, and he's taking on Shannon Ross. His price point is this high because of his opponent. I don't think they sat down and said, Hyun Sung Park is the best fighter on this card and should be worth the most. I don't think that's what happened. He is a slick grappler. He's got one game plan. Come forward, find the opening, get it to the ground. He's a finisher. He'll snatch things up in scrambles. He'll find things very quickly. But he can be patient on his feet before finding those openings. He'll take his time. He'll throw one strike at a time. Wait, boom, there's my opportunity, and he'll take a shot. He can be dangerous. The more tape you watch, though, the more you're like, this guy does not like striking. He'll turn his head. He does not want to be in a striking match. So if you stay in his face, you bomb away, you could have a little bit of success. He is undefeated. He does have 7 finishes. He's only been to 1 single decision so far. He's taking on Shannon Ross. I get it, guys. Shannon Ross is 1-4 in his last 5. He is looking for his first UFC win. He could be a little bit chinny. He can get submitted. I get it. We've seen him fight twice in the official UFC. He was finished both times. I get it. With that being said, skill-wise, he's actually pretty well-rounded. He's a wrestler. That's his primary discipline. He will get sucked in the firefights, which is how he ends up unconscious in the first round. But he's got solid takedowns. He's willing to trade. The biggest issue here is he is hittable. The good news for him is Hyun Sung Park isn't hitting anybody. He's just trying to shoot takedowns immediately. I do think Hyun Sung Park's probably going to win this fight. I think Shannon Ross has shown us he's not really at this level yet. He's not necessarily capable of winning a fight in the UFC. At least we haven't seen that yet. Hyun Sung Park has proven to us that he can win in the UFC. He can win in general. He's undefeated. But this is the exact type of fight where a winless underdog can beat up a grapple nerd. I mean, Hyun Sung Park is just looking to get it to the ground immediately. He wrestles, so it's not just pull guard pathetic, but Shannon Ross is a wrestler. I'm not touching Hyun Sung Park at $9,500. Not what I can get Tatsuro Taira for just a little bit less, and a couple other fighters that can score really well. So I'm not, if I had to pick between Park and here's the problem. Before I finish that statement, I was going to say Park and Melk Costa. The problem is, if Hyun Sung Park wins, which he probably should, he is going to score well because Shannon Ross gets finished. He gets sparked. My real concern isn't how many points will Hyun Sung Park score in a win. My real concern is, how good is he? I mean, is he that good? Or could Shannon Ross legitimately just stay in his face, hit him, take him down? Like, if Park can't get the takedowns, he doesn't have much. And yes, Shannon Ross doesn't have a great chin, but who the hell is Hyun Sung Park knocking out? So anyway, I'm going to avoid this fight entirely. I'm going to leave it alone. But if you're using the optimizer, so premium members, you have access to the optimizer. The optimizer's preloaded with the best ownership projections in the game. That's an objective fact. You can configure it. You can say, build me 100 lineups. I only want a little bit of exposure to Shannon Ross because I don't think he's going to win. You could say, I want no exposure. You could say, I don't want him in any lineups. My recommendation to you will be, don't do that. Shannon Ross should be in a couple. You're doing one of these large field 150 multi-entry tournaments. You should have some exposure to Shannon. It's not absurd that he wins this fight. It's not like it's Shannon Ross versus a tried and true proven entity. It's versus a young kid that hasn't, he's won 8 fights. Great. That is incredible. But who did he beat? He hasn't beat anybody good yet. And neither is Shannon. I'm not making the case that Shannon wins this fight. I'm just making the case that maybe we hold off a little bit on Hyun Sung Park. So Shannon Ross maybe in a lineup or two if you're doing a large multi-entry field tournament. But for now, I'm just going to sit that fight out entirely. Then we have Kevin Jousset versus Kenan Song. Kevin Jousset, $8,500. I think that is incredible value. I think he probably should be in your lineup at that price point. He is sort of a stalky striker. He's going to plot forward. He's going to be patient. He's going to have low hands, low volume, but he has power, and he is powerful. So he's got power in his hands, and he's strong. He'll come forward. He'll get you to the cage. He'll pick you up. He'll slam you down. He'll push you around. He'll bully you. He'll do all of those things. He's a physically strong, imposing guy that can slow the pace, bring you to the ground, and beat you up. He can strike as well, but I don't know if he's going to want to necessarily be trading strike for strike with Kenan Song, because Kenan Song or Song Kenan has that one-punch knockout power. All day, every day, that one-punch knockout power is there, ready to go. We watched it against Ian Gary. He almost had that dude dead to rights. The only reason he didn't finish Ian Gary is because of his low fight IQ. He was right there. He had Ian just like stumbling and bumbling, just about to knock that dude out. And then he started to grapple. It gave Ian his breath. It gave Ian time to recover. And he screwed himself by doing that. He absolutely screwed himself by doing that. If he didn't do that, he finishes Ian Gary. And we don't have to hear about Ian Gary's wife is taking advantage of him. And that's what she does. Point being, Song Kenan has legitimate one-punch fight-ending power. I mean, look at all these knockdowns. Knocked down Rolando Bedoya. Look at that price point, $7,000, and he won that fight. He knocked down Ian Gary, who's supposed to be one of the better strikers in the division. He knocked down whoever the hell Potter is. I should go back and look and see who that is. He knocked down Aldana. He knocked down Nat. I mean, look how many knockdowns this guy has. The power is there. He could absolutely knock down and knocked out Kevin Jousset. That is absolutely something that could happen. But I think Kevin Jousset's going to be smart enough to close the distance, get this fight to the ground, avoid that big power. I think he's going to score really well. And I think he's going to be worth that $8,500. But again, you're building large tournament entry lineups. A little bit of exposure to Song Kenan, a guy that has this kind of power. A guy that has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 knockdowns, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 fight UFC. 5 knockdowns in 8 fights is insane. Guy's got real big boy power. Could absolutely make something happen. I just don't think he will. Then we have Jun-Young Park taking on Andre Muniz, the Iron Turtle. He is like one of the most popular picks this week. Everybody is picking him instead of Andre Muniz. I will warn you against that, and I'll tell you why. But first, we'll talk about Jun-Young Park. He's not great anywhere. He is a very well-rounded guy. He's got a good jab, good cage control, solid takedowns, good strike. Like, he's good at everything. But there's not one thing where you're like, he has X. You're not going to say he's insanely powerful. It's not the Song Kenan breakdown, right? You're not going to say he's got great wrestling. You're not going to say he's got great jiu-jitsu. He's decent everywhere, and he's got, will and determination. He beat Albert Duraev. That is probably his best win to date. Absolutely. He did knock him down. All of a sudden, that power popped up out of nowhere, but I believe Duraev is about 42 years old. He beat Dennis Tululin. Dennis Tulin's a pretty one-dimensional kind of guy. He beat Joseph Holmes. No longer in the UFC. Kind of sucks. The Anders win was a good win, but a lot of people think he lost that fight. A lot of people think that was a bad decision. But that is a good win. Kennedy and Chukwu, that's a good win as well. Like, there are good wins mixed in here, and that's what makes him so tricky to break down, because on one hand, my gut is always like, he's not that good. And then it's like, well, he beat Marc-Andre Barreau. He beat Phillips. He beat Kennedy and Chukwu. Eric Anders, who's decent. Joseph Holmes sucks. There's some decent wins in there. Well-rounded guy, not incredible anywhere. I'm going to say he's not dangerous. And then you're going to say, well, he's coming off 3 submission wins in a row. He's not dangerous. Somehow he put together those 3 submissions in a row. The reason I'm going to caution everybody before they go all in on Jun-Young Park is Andre Muniz, yes, he's coming off 2 losses in a row. And yes, this loss to Paul Craig was bad. He was a pathetic quitter in that fight. I wouldn't say it to his face because he would submit me immediately. But he quit. He quit. He got bullied, beat up, and was like, it just turned, let me out of this fight. I want nothing to do with it. And that's the problem. Once you find the quit button, that quit button is always there. And that's what worries me a little bit, because Jun-Young Park is a pressure guy, but Andre Muniz is an incredibly high-level BJJ guy. He has all the grappling skills in the world. All of them. Look what he's done. Jacare Souza is when he really made a splash. When he submitted Jacare, people were like, oh, shit. Andre Muniz is good. His striking looks good in these fights. He's a well-rounded guy, but he does have that quote-unquote quit button. I think Jun Park should win. But he is fighting a guy with decent striking. There's some random power in the mix there who has incredible BJJ. Jun Park has been winning by forward pressure striking and then getting it to the ground. I don't know if he's going to do that with Andre Muniz. He might. Paul Craig did, but Paul Craig is also a phenomenal grappler himself. So I don't think he was worried about the jiu-jitsu. So Jun Park should win this fight. Once I see somebody quit, it's hard for me to not go back to that. And Jun Park's the exact type of guy that'll just stay there, be there, and eventually he'll break you. But Andre Muniz has all the skills to win this fight, could potentially pull off the upset here. And this time last year, right? So he lost to Brendan Allen as a huge favorite. This time last year, he would have been a 10-1 favorite over Jun Park. $9,100 versus Brendan Allen. Then they said, okay, he's still a big favorite over Paul Craig. Now he's lost 2 in a row and like, this guy sucks. He's an underdog. Let's not forget what got him there. Those skills. There's some quality wins here as well. Uriah Hall's not bad. Eric Anders as well. Everybody's beating Eric Anders here. And then obviously Jacare Souza, but a little bit older. Anyway, this has gone on a little bit long. Point being, Andre Muniz is actually very good. I don't know if I trust Park enough. I do think he'll win. I don't know if I trust him enough. So I'm probably going to leave them out of this as well. Then we have Tim Elliott, $8,400, taking on Sumudaerji. Tim Elliott stepping up on short notice. He stepped up like 3 days ago because Alana Nascimento dropped. I think Tim Elliott wins this fight. I absolutely think Tim Elliott wins this fight. I absolutely am going to have Tim Elliott in my lineup at $8,400. I think that's a great price. Look at what this guy does in wins. 116, 96, 97. It's just nonstop wrestling pace and pressure. Nonstop. And yes, he's got plenty of losses here. But look at these losses. Figueiredo, the champ. Askarov, phenomenal fighter. Brandon Royval, could be champ. Like, these are not bad losses. I don't know who the hell that is. But these are not bad losses. Joseph Benavidez. Demetrius Johnson, greatest fighter of all time. Like, these are not bad losses. Even the Muhammad Makayev one. He had a takedown in that fight. Just one. But he had plenty of control time. He kind of got screwed a little bit. He was kneeing the dude, not in the head, but the ref thought it was the head, stood him up. But he was kneeing the hell out of him. The ref stood him up. He kind of got screwed there. If that fight went to the judges' scorecard, he was going to win that fight. He was up 2 rounds, heading into the third. He was going to lose the third. It was going to be a 29-28 for Tim Elliott. That's an objective fact. Go check the scorecards. That's public record. I wouldn't have agreed with it, but my point is he's a busy guy. He stays tough. He's going to come forward. You can trust him to wrestle. You can trust him to put on a pace. You can trust him to sort of stay out of danger and just heads down, busy grappler. He's fighting Sumudaerji. Sumudaerji. They did Sumudaerji. It's not that. It's just this. It's just Sumudaerji. If you're going to separate it, you separate it after the Su. So Sumudaerji, not Sumudaerji. Anyway, who am I to be breaking that down for people? Anyway, he's a striker. Fast, laser, pinpoint, accurate striking. Good volume. Not really any power there. It's a lot of... It's just a lot of pot shots. The speed, the accuracy is so good that he could catch you, could get you that way, but it's not just like raw power. People can take him down, and that's the problem. That's going to be the problem in this matchup. He's a very good striker. He's clean. He moves well. He touches people up, but he can be taken down. Therefore, I got to go Tim Elliott all day. I can trust him to stay tight, not get touched, shoot. Tight, touch, shoot. Tight, touch, shoot. Get it to the cage. There's no power there. There's no laser pinpoint accuracy against the cage. Close the distance. Get this to the ground. Close the distance. Get it to the cage. Just do not stay at the end of this guy's punches, and you'll be fine all day long. $8,400. I have to have Tim Elliott in my lineup at that price. Then we have the featured fight of the evening. Nasrat Haqparast taking on Jamie Mullarkey. I'm not going to have Nasrat in my lineup. I'll tell you that right now. I mean, yes, he scored almost 100 points against Quinones, But this dude was a short notice UFC debut. And frankly, he was lighting up Nasrat's legs. Outside of that, 78 points in the win over Makdessi. I think that's what this fight looks like. I think this fight looks like this because I do think Nasrat wins. Nasrat's a decent striker. He's got good volume. He's got decent pressure if he's the one coming forward. He's got very good wrestling as well that he doesn't use that often. Those 2 takedowns against Makdessi are the only takedowns he has scored in the UFC. The only ones. Or sorry, he has one more in his debut against Held. And he's a good wrestler. So he's got a skill set he doesn't use. Then he's got hands. They're okay. He does not have insane power. But he's got good volume, good accuracy. He's a tough guy. I mean, his legs were lit up. And he just continued to fight in his last fight. I do think he wins this fight. But I don't think he's going to score well enough to have in your lineup. He's taking on Jamie Mullarkey. I've been pretty hard on Jamie Mullarkey in the past. There's just something about the way he looks that's unsettling. But the point is, he's actually pretty good. He's not a terrible fighter. He's very similar to whoever the hell it was that I just broke down, or Jun Young Park, where I'm like, he's good everywhere, great nowhere. That's Jamie Mullarkey. He has fan power. He's got a couple of knockout wins right here. They were back-to-back, although Kama Worthy is no longer in the UFC, so it is what it is. But they put somebody in front of him, he knocked him out. He's got decent hands. He does have good volume. He has good pressure, and he's got wrestling. He will actually use his wrestling. He's a grappler by nature, like that was his background. Then he added the striking, and now he's sort of mixing it together. The only reason I'm picking Nasrat to beat Jamie, and I'm not very confident in that, but the only reason I'm picking Nasrat to beat Jamie is I think Nasrat's defensive wrestling should be good enough to stop some of these takedowns. And then Nasrat has that volume striking. Nasrat should be the better striker. But Jamie Mullarkey is the type of guy that could beat Nasrat. The exact type of guy that could beat Nasrat. He has pressure. He comes forward. He stays busy. And he could have some success. I'm still going to pick Nasrat. I'm not going to have him in my lineup because he doesn't score well. Jamie Mullarkey is a very good underdog at $7,500. One of the more live underdogs on this card. So he may sneak into a lineup if I'm a little pressed for budget. But I don't think Nasrat's worth the money. We did watch Jamie Mullarkey just get flatlined on short notice against Naimov. We watched Turner flatline him as well. So you can say he's got a questionable chin, and he probably does. But I don't think Nasrat has that power. There's rumors, but we haven't necessarily seen it. Then we have the co-main event of the evening. Khalil Rountree taking on Anthony Smith. Anthony Smith stepping up on short notice, get himself a nice little payday before the holidays. Khalil Rountree is a nasty striker. He's just a solid Muay Thai striker who is fast, powerful, athletic. That's who Khalil Rountree is. You couldn't depend on him for a little while there, right? Look at this stretch. Johnny Walker, oh, maybe. Nope. All right, he beat Anders. Good close fight. He should be able to beat Kutalaba. Nope. Look at this. 5 significant strikes. Kutalaba got his ass. But we know Kutalaba has power. Prochniau. He should be able to beat Prochniau. He should be able to get it done. And just didn't get off on the wrestling. Didn't get off on the striking. And all of a sudden he lost a decision. So there was a period of time where Khalil Rountree was a little bit unreliable. And then now he has put it together. He beat Bukauskas. He beat Robertson. I do not think he beat Dustin Jacoby. I thought that was a bad decision. But then he smoked Dawkins. Khalil Rountree has settled in. And if you go, yes, first round knockout. But if you watch the fight, he wasn't just chasing wild. He wasn't aggressively running forward. He dropped him. He was taking his time. And he ended up finishing the fight. That Khalil Rountree, the patient Khalil Rountree, is the best version of himself, and that's who we have now. And because of that, I do think he beats Anthony Smith. The question is, can he finish Anthony Smith? Because Anthony Smith is tough as hell. And Kalayev beat him. That was an injury, right? Wasn't that like a broken ankle or knee or some shit? So that was an injury. Outside of that, finishing him is not the easiest thing to do. Glover Teixeira did it in the 5th round after taking him down and knocking his teeth out of his face. That didn't end it. The teeth coming out of Anthony Smith's mouth didn't end the fight. He grabbed his teeth, handed them to the referee, and then continued on with his beating. The whole point to all of this is Anthony Smith is insanely tough. Skill-wise, he's a good fighter. He's got very good striking. Very good submissions as well. He just submitted Ryan Spann, not the last time they fought, but 2 fights ago. And yes, he lost a decision to Johnny Walker in a weird fight. Like, mental illness type fight. Before that, he was injured against Ankalaev. I believe it was an injury. I could be dead wrong there. I believe it was an injury. But Anthony Smith is the type of guy, he fought for a title. He went out there. He's got all the skills. He's not a top 5 guy in the world, but he is the exact type of guy that's going to check you. You're going to find out, should I be ranked? Because Anthony Smith is good enough to let you know, to be the scale of if you should be ranked or not. I don't think a short notice Anthony Smith is going to get it done. I don't think Anthony Smith at this point in his career is going to be beating a lot of people. The inconsistent Khalil Rountree from years past, he could absolutely beat. This new Khalil Rountree, the one who's patient and fast and powerful, I think he lights up Anthony Smith. Ryan Spann almost had Anthony Smith dead to rights. Almost had him dead to rights. But Anthony Smith is just so tough. He stayed alive. This fight, not that one. He stayed alive, and he was able to sneak out a close win. I thought he lost that fight, but he was able to sneak that out. This is a tricky one because Khalil Rountree, $8,900. And unless you think he's going to stop Anthony Smith or just put on an absolute beating, he may not be worth that money. In a decision, he only scored 65 against Dustin Jacoby, and that's exactly what this could look like, just a little more dominant. Let's call it 75 because he lands even more strikes. So I'm probably not going to have Khalil Rountree in my lineup either, even though I do think he beats Anthony Smith. And then we have the main event. We have Song Yadong taking on Chris Gutierrez. Striker versus striker. Song Yadong is that guy. I think he's coming into his own, and he's becoming that guy. His only loss in the last couple of years was to Corey Sandhagen. He was finished, but you know what? He needed that loss. Corey Sandhagen is a dog. Corey Sandhagen's at the top of this division. Corey Sandhagen should be fighting for a title instead of Chito Vera. But Corey Sandhagen is the type of guy that will come forward, will slow you down, will be awkward as hell, drag you to the ground, do all of those things. But outside of that, Song Yadong has looked fantastic. Specifically in his last fight, he looked absolutely spectacular. He fought the most aggressive wrestler in this division. And he got 2 knockdowns and doubled Ricky Simone's strikes. And the reason I want to highlight that is because a lot of these people who fight these high-level wrestlers are a little gun-shy. They're afraid to commit because I'm going to get taken down. I don't want to get taken down. But that wasn't Song. He let his hands go. He dealt with the wrestling. And he pushed his own pace, did his own thing, imposed his own will, lit that dude up, got a 5th round stoppage, put 104 points on the board. My issue is he is $9,200, and if we go through his slate, okay, he would have covered with the finish over Marias, the finish over Arce, not necessarily, and in decisions, he doesn't even come close. Not even close in decisions because there's almost no grappling. All of his decisions are in the 70s because it's just strike. It's just straight up striking volume. If he gets a takedown, there's not much control time that goes along with it. But he is that team alpha male. He should be prepared to wrestle, and we know he has in his back pocket. He's taking on Chris Gutierrez. Chris Gutierrez is a striker. He's not nearly as fast or as powerful as Song, but he's a good striker. He's got very good volume, and he's got incredible leg kicks. He does a nice job lighting your legs up, slowing you down. Light the legs up, slow you down. Once he's got you slowed down, once he's lit your legs up, then he'll come to the head. Then he'll start looking for those finishes, looking to start do something up top. He can have some very real power. The Danab Bagarai win was a nice win. Frankie Edgar, I hated to see that because I love Frankie, and Frankie was way too old to be fighting those young killers. But Marlon Moraes, a solid win. I'm just looking at finishes, obviously. But, the reality is Chris Gutierrez can be dangerous. He's got good striking. He's got all those things. I don't think he wins this fight. This was supposed to be the main event at UFC Shanghai. And the UFC knew what they were doing with this matchup. Song's going to be faster. He's going to hit harder. He's probably going to have the better wrestling. Chris could take away his legs, could really slow him down and be an issue later in the fight. I don't see that happening. I do think Song's going to win. I'm going to shoot my shot and take my chance and put Song in my lineup. There are 5 rounds to work with, and it could look like the Ricky Simone fight where he's touching up Chris Gutierrez and really starting to beat him up, and 4th, 5th round is when he gets a finish or really makes something happen and puts something on the board. So, guys, that is the breakdown. Become a premium member. It's only $10 a month. You're going to get the best DraftKings ownership projections in the game. You're going to get an optimizer that builds lineups for you. And you're going to join this group of premium members who have won over $400,000 in the last 4 months. That is not an accident. $10,000 a month. No, sorry, $100,000 a month in winnings from premium members alone. These are not coincidences. These are not accidents. They have access to an optimizer with the best numbers in the game and so much more. WeWantPicks.com. Click Become a Member at the top. It's freaking $10. What are we doing? What are we doing? You can't go to Starbucks and spend less than $10.